Well, I'm Dr. Dan Wool. I am at Chambers Clinic. I specialize in gastroenterology, so a lot of the gut health stuff, and then a lot of the downstream effects when your gut fails you, hormones and those sorts of things. And over the last couple of years, a couple of years ago, I met Celine Fabre, who you've been introduced to when you got here, and we did a couple talks together. So I wanted to plug her into our, the folks who come into the clinic, and she'll talk a little bit about what she does later. But first, what I wanted to talk about is, what I see in the clinic, with all of my patients. I think one of the things we have the greatest difficulty with is, what do we eat? There's so many options out there, and so what we wanted to do was an event that taught how easy this can be and how helpful this can be. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. We wanted to just get a small group together. So I hope you enjoy what we have this evening. I'll just talk about a few things that medically that I see in the clinic. And the main thing is that we've started to become disconnected from what our original factory setting of our bodies are. We live in an urban environment, we live in a convenience culture, and this has repercussions when it comes to dealing with food and preparing healthy food. We can say we're going to go get healthy food just down the street at a taco shop, and there you go. You've got vegetables and meat and a little bit of grains, and it's healthy. Can convince ourselves of just about anything, I think. So, but really, when it comes to the things that I see, people come in with their gut, in pain. They're well beyond the $5 remedies over at CVS, and they have these chronic issues. They have inflamed guts. They have what we call leaky gut. That inflammation goes for so long that the junctions that hold our gut open just open slightly, and we get things leaking through, causing an allergic response. You have things like bacterial overgrowths that cause a lot of bloating. That's sometimes due to restrictive diets. And then anything you've seen in a Pepto-Bismol commercial that gets chronic, that's what I see. And I think one of the biggest challenges is, as a naturopathic doctor, we are always looking at diet and lifestyle in addition to all the organ systems of the body. So essentially, Hippocrates said so long ago, the father of medicine, let food be thy medicine. And so we do start there. When I went to medical school, I had celiac disease that went undiagnosed for years. I finally got it diagnosed. I went on a gluten-free diet, and I was feeling amazing, and I started to really get into diet and nutrition and those sorts of things. And eventually I ended up in medical school, and now here I am. But the one thing that survived medical school is that a healthy diet really cures a lot of ills. But again, where do we start? How do we do it? What do we do? And how do we reconnect to food? So a couple things that I'll just touch on. To reconnect to food, you have to reconnect your senses to the food. I'd invite you to smell your food when it comes, and you'll see a funny thing happen. You'll salivate. Our mouth is filled with digestive enzymes, the same ones that are in our stomach, amylase and lipase, that break down sugars and fats, which are the preferential fuels for the brain and the body. They're here. So when we smell the food, it prepares these juices, and it prepares these juices down here for this it seems like so simple because we do it every day, but for this really delicate dance that we call digestion. So you can smell your food, you'll salivate, and now your mouth is a little bit more prepared for what's about to come, and hopefully it's very delicious. On the flip side of that, if it was bitter and you wouldn't taste it, and your body's going to protect you. So the nose knows, and that's the first place I would start with that. The other thing, like I said, amylase and lipase are in the mouth, and a lot of us eat conveniently, which means that we eat really, really fast. My family ate really, really fast at the dinner table. I don't know why, but we all wolf down our food. And when we do that, particularly in again, a convenience culture where we're getting a burger here or a taco there, and we're eating it in the car, or Subway, eating it in the car on the way to somewhere, or I have just 5 minutes in between a meeting in order to get this down. We really eat fast, and then what ends up happening is you're bypassing this process of digestion. We swallow the food, it gets to the stomach, and it hasn't been pre-digested. So then all of a sudden the body needs to have more energy, put up more acid to try to boil this food down and get it through us so that we can break it into food and nutrients. So the next thing I would invite you to do, smell your food, then chew your food. I know that sounds really simple. There was a craze in the 1920s called Fletcherizing, invented by a guy named Fletcher. Perhaps not surprisingly, but he said, chew your food 100 times, and this became a craze, and everybody thought that this was the key to health. Well, 100 times they've since debunked many, many times, probably 100 times, that 100 times isn't going to change it. But I will ask you to do an experiment, and it's a mouthfeel experiment. Chew your food a little bit more thoroughly than you would ordinarily. And what you're going to notice is eventually it's going to get a little slimy, and that's called a bolus, and that's the form that the body wants the food in before we swallow. So a lot of times it's just and on down the esophagus. If you chew a little bit more, usually about 20 to 30 times for carbohydrates, usually about 25 to 35 or 40 times for something like a steak or protein, you'll find that it'll break down, it'll get in that bolus, it'll feel a little bit slimier. You don't have to do this every single meal, but just do it as an experiment, and it's just a reminder to slow down and enjoy what's going on. And the body wants that too, and your body will reward you with better digestion because all the enzymes that are supposed to break that down before it gets to the stomach are already breaking it down. And so you'll be able to digest a little bit easier. The other things that we do in a convenience culture, we eat too little and we eat too much. I would say that you see Larry the Cable Guy on the Prilosec commercials online and on television, and it's always somebody ate too much. If you guys remember the commercial, I forget what it was for, maybe Tums or Rolex. It's, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Anybody remember that? Yep. Okay. Well, and that's it. If we eat too much, we put up too much acid, and all of a sudden we have this acid reflux. We need to eat in smaller portions. The sizes that you get when you go out for food, like I love Chipotle. We have one in our parking lot in Scottsdale. I could take down a bowl really quickly, but it's a lot of food. And realistically, we should really only be having, number one, filling your plate with carbohydrates, mostly vegetables, to basically like a handful of meat. About 4 ounces is about an optimal amount of meat. So if you're getting a tomahawk steak up at Mastro's that's like 72 ounces and you're going to take the whole thing down, it's probably not the best way to go, at least on a daily basis. So two, got to break it, have the proper portion size. So a lot of folks also eat too little. We sometimes get digestive distress. We sometimes get chronic conditions, and they're frustrating. And we can go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, well, here's just a prescription, take this, but long term it doesn't really fix the problem, and we're still having it. So what you end up doing is going online, looking up fad diets, or looking up books, you're finding gurus that that write these books, and they've got their own diets and supplements and supplies and things like that, and you're kind of trying to self-medicate everything, and instead, really, you just need to take a step, and you end up with these restrictive diets. You start going the other way. There's a lot of food sensitivity. So people say eat a gluten-free diet. Well, now all the grains are out of your diet. And well, they say dairy inflames you. So now they're taking dairy out of the diet. Well, we have microbes, billions and billions of microbes that digest these things in our lower gut and in our upper gut, the small intestine and the large intestine. And so the more we restrict these things, it's like having a stadium full of people and they only drink beer, and you take away all the beer. Well, all the people are going to leave. The same thing happens in the gut. If we're not feeding the microbes, they're going to leave. And there's different colonies of microbes, so then what happens? It's Lord of the Flies. The ones that are the strongest become the biggest colonies. The ones that are the weakest go away, or they're not really a factor. So, but we may need those weak ones to, do something like, digest that tomahawk steak from Mastro's. But there's not enough there to really do it. So we have to keep our flora in a good balance. There's some thoughts, because our gut is our second brain, there are some thoughts that our flora run the show. That if you think about it, microbes have been around for 3 billion years or more, and they're resident in our gut. So they've got many billion more years wisdom and million more years wisdom than we do, and maybe they're running the show. So to kind of starve them out in certain respects is not healthy. When people go on too restrictive a diet, eventually when they start to eat other foods, they can't digest them. And we may try to probiotic our way out of it. You can't. You have to feed your way out of it. Some things have to get under control, like a bacterial overgrowth. That can happen with a restrictive diet. And then bacteria sweep up from the large intestine into the small intestine. They get fed sugars and things they're not supposed to have, and we get gas and bloating. And that often I see that from restrictive diets. So don't eat too much, don't eat too little, reconnect with your senses, and digestion should go a lot better. The other things is that that we should talk about is bowel movements. I know we're going to eat and we don't want to talk too much about that, but you should be having a bowel movement at least one a day that it's not crazy, like on the diarrhea side of things, and it's not crazy on the constipation side of things. If that's happening, you may have too little fluid or too little fiber in the diet, and so you gotta supplement those things. Particularly this time of year where it's so hot here, definitely have an extra glass of water, at least 8 ounces. If you're an active person and work out, have another 8 ounces of water. If you are somebody who drinks a lot of coffee, have another 8 ounces of water, maybe before the coffee, not after the coffee, because it makes you feel low. So those are some things to think about. You gotta stay well hydrated, and it'll keep those bowel movements going the way that they're supposed to. And the last thing would be, at the tail end, this is a little gross, but pay attention to what's in the bowl. It doesn't have to be every single day, but there shouldn't be any, your color, the size of the stool, it should be consistent day to day. It should more or less look the same every day. Now it's going to change based on what you eat, but you don't want a light colored stool, too light, white. You don't want bile, which is like yellow substance. You don't want any blood. You don't want a dark stool. Dark stools can mean that you have blood, a bleed somewhere in the upper gut that's just kind of drying and then getting caught in the stool and getting pulled out. So pay attention to what's in the bowl. Sometimes it's a really early indicator. Gross as it may sound, it's sometimes a very early indicator that something is wrong, or that something is becoming chronically ill in the body. So pay close attention to your bowel movements, how often you're having them, and then also kind of what they look like. And finally, I will leave you with one other thing. This is the trickiest thing that most of my patients have to do, and that's prepare your meals at home. It's critical. We used to do it all the time with our family dinners, that sort of thing, and then we got busy and fast food came in and convenience food came in, and now we do that mostly. So prepare your meals at home. You can batch cook your meals. Make 4 servings. If there's 2 people, well, that's 2 days worth of lunch. That's 2 days worth of dinner. So what you can do, what we do in our house is we'll make a menu on Saturday. We'll do grocery shopping on Saturday. You don't want to shop without a plan. If you go into the grocery store without a plan, you'll be in the middle aisles. For me, that's the ice cream. And so all those middle aisles in the store are all the things that they want to sell you. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. This is literally how they lay it out. The things they want to sell you are right at eye level, and they're right in the middle of the store, and they're on display. And you go, ooh, wow, strawberry ice cream, I'm gonna have that. So, have a plan when you go there, have a list, and check everything off the list. Great, you bring it home. We do our menu planning, we do our grocery shopping, and then on Sundays we will go to we will prepare our meals, and we try to prepare a few meals at a time. One thing that I try to do, one trick that I try to do is I'll try to toggle something, one thing that'll go in the oven, one thing that'll go on the stove, and sometimes one thing that'll go in the microwave or in like an Instant Pot or a crock pot. That way you're doing 3 different things all at the same time. So it's not like you have 3 things in the oven and you have to wait 45 minutes for the thing to finish, put the next one in and put the next one in. You shouldn't have to give up your entire Sunday to do something like this. It usually only takes a couple hours. So one of the things I hope you'll take away today from learning from Celine is that you can prepare fresh meals very easily at home. It just requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought, and once you get in the habit and do it for a week or 2, you won't go back, and you'll be healthier for it. If you're eating out all the time, Fred, the food preparer, is not worried about your food sensitivities or your allergies. He's not worried about what diet you're on. He's not worried that you're 30 pounds overweight or whatever you're trying to accomplish. They're just preparing food and eating it, and you eat it. So the more that you can control this, do it at home. That means that you can have healthy food that you control. If you have food sensitivities or allergies, or a doctor has diagnosed you with a condition such as diabetes where you need to eat an anti-inflammatory, low sugar diet, then that's an easy way to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need and letting food be your medicine. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and I'm really glad that you all came this evening, and I'm really excited to introduce Celine Fabre. You met her a little bit when we came in, and she'll give you a little bit more information here, and I think we'll see some cooking. Thanks, everybody.